What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about proper husbandry for a leopard gecko. Leopard geckos, also commonly called Leos, are found in arid and semi-arid areas of northern India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. Leopard geckos are crepuscular, ground-dwelling creatures, meaning they are most active during dawn and dusk. A Leo's tail is very unique. They have the ability to store fat in it and use it as energy in needed times. This is because in the wild, they might have to experience long periods of time without any food. In addition, they can drop and regenerate their tail. It usually regenerates within a few months, but the regenerated tail will look a little different than the original. Now let's talk a little bit about the temperament of leopard geckos. They are not prone to biting and are usually slow moving, but can be quick when they want to be. They tend to be docile creatures and generally easy to tame. They are also known to be very vocal. Usually this happens when they are trying to communicate with you. This could mean they are trying to tell you they're hungry, all the way to them just making a mating call. Like most reptiles, leopard geckos are solitary creatures for the most part, meaning they do not feel lonely or desire the company of other geckos. Now for housing, a 20-gallon long tank is the minimum size for one adult leopard gecko. But a 40-gallon breeder tank or bigger is suggested for your pet to be happy. Never keep them with any other leopard gecko or any other animal. They need to be kept alone unless you're trying to breed a male and a female. But even then, should only be kept together for short periods of time and under strict supervision. Now, these lizards are technically a semi-desert species, so they do not need a high humid environment. That being said, if the humidity level drops below 30%, the gecko will have trouble during the shedding process, which will ultimately lead to health complications. Try to keep the humidity level between 35 to 65%. Now, if you're worried about being able to maintain the humidity level, then you can use a hide with sphagnum moss inside of it. Mist the sphagnum moss every other day or as needed. Your gecko will use it whenever it needs to. You'll most likely see it camp out in there the whole time during the shedding process. If you have a suitable loose substrate, then you can also dump water directly into the terrarium to raise the overall humidity. You really shouldn't miss your terrarium because it can put your Leo at risk for respiratory issues. Make sure your gecko is not exposed to any drafts, so try to place the terrarium away from any windows or doors. Now for temperature, leopard geckos are cold-blooded creatures. They use the surface temperature to regulate their own bodies, so we'll need a basking spot with the surface temperature between 91 to 97 degrees Fahrenheit. They will also need a range of temperature throughout the terrarium, called thermal gradient, so that they can adjust their own body warmth. For daytime, the warm side should be between 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, with the thermal gradient down to 70-75 degrees Fahrenheit for the cool side. This can be done by using things such as deep heat emitters, also halogen and incandescent basking bulbs. At nighttime, they do not need any heat as long as the temperature stays above 65 degrees Fahrenheit. If by chance it drops below 65 degrees Fahrenheit, then you can use a ceramic heat emitter to raise the ambient temperature. You can maintain the temperature of the basking spot and the warm and cool zone by checking the surface temperature using a temperature gauge with a probe or a temperature gun. A proper lighting setup is also very important in keeping your leopard geckos healthy and will drastically reduce the risk of metabolic bone disease. Many people say that lighting is not necessary to keep a leopard gecko alive, but that is just far from the truth. They will need UVB lighting covering at least half of the enclosure. This is because they use the UVB rays to create their own D3 to properly process ingested calcium. Some good options include the T5 and T8 style UVB light from Arcadia or Reptisun. As we have already talked about, you will also need an additional heat source for a basking spot from a deep heat emitter, halogen, or incandescent basking bulb. First off, I want to say that Leopard Gecko substrate options are very controversial. Many people use reptile carpet that can harbor bacteria, which can ultimately make your leopard gecko very sick, costing you a trip to the vet. Some good options include paper towels, large stone slate, ceramic tiles, or you can even use newspaper. Some other good options but can be controversial when using are sand, large river stones, excavator clay, and organic soil. If you do decide using one of these, I would recommend mixing it with other things. For example, I use a substrate mix of 40% sand, 30% organic soil, 20% cocoa fiber, and 10% sphagnum moss. Now, the only reason I use a so-called controversial substrate for my terrarium is because I have a bioactive setup for my Leo. So if you aren't planning on having live plants in the enclosure, then I just stick to paper towels or even ceramic tiles. That being said, Leos need lots of clutter for hiding in shade, so I would recommend adding fake plants. The diet is a very important topic when it comes to leopard geckos. That's because a proper diet is one of the biggest things in keeping your pet happy and healthy. In most cases, Leos will only accept live insects. This is because they are insectivores, meaning they only eat things such as crickets, isopods, cockroaches, and mealworms. Leos need vitamin and mineral supplements, with a particular focus on calcium and vitamin D3. Some good options include Arcadia Earth Pro A for their vitamin A, and Rapashi Calcium Plus for their calcium and vitamin D3. Overall, keeping a leopard gecko is easy as long as you have the proper setup and consistently maintain it. Otherwise, it can cost you a trip to the vet, or even worse, losing your pet. If you guys got any good information out of this, please like and subscribe to support the channel. And I'll see you all later.